Got my coffee and today's guest here with me, so we're ready to roll. I'm Michael Hanf, Executive Partner at Taival Advisory. Welcome to our Circular Coffee Break podcast, where we will be casually talking about everything circular and beyond. We hope the podcast is interesting, insightful, and provides a new perspective for all of you. If you would like to give us feedback, have improvement ideas or suggestions, just leave a comment or drop us a note at info@taival.com. So looking forward to all of your ideas going forward. My guest today has extensive experience in sustainability and circularity in the built environment specifically. He holds an MSc in geology from the Åbo Academy University, where he graduated in 2004, and after which he worked for some years as a research scientist at the Tampere University of Technology. Between 2006 and 2020, he worked at NCC, one of the leading construction companies in the Nordics, where he held the role of Head of Sustainable Business Development. Since 2020, he works for NRC Group, a leading Nordic infrastructure company, engineering, building sustainable transport solutions in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And there he's the head of sustainability and the environmental manager for Finland. Additionally to these roles, he's a board member at the Green Building Council since last year. I'm really looking forward to jump into the discussion and discuss all of these topics and the circularity and sustainability in the construction and built environment. Thank you for joining me on the show today, Jukka Viitanen.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining. And as I said, I mean, the construction industry is a very interesting industry where a lot is happening at the moment, and sustainability and circularity are hot topics. Naturally, as the industry is contributing significantly to the global impact. So, I mean, you have been working in the field for the past 15 plus years. From your point of view, how has the discussion changed? What are today some of the most burning topics you're seeing in the industry?
Well, how has it changed? It has changed significantly during the years that I've been working within construction, because back closer to 2000 when I started, there was no discussion about sustainability. The topics were mostly related to environmental protection, for example, or following the regulation and legislation that we had, but not sustainability in general. Mm-hmm. So the development has been really fast, and we have taken a gigantic leap from following the law into this world where to be able to become a good corporate citizen, we need to have some kind of, or actually quite a lot of content when it comes to sustainability. Yeah. So it has developed a lot, and this development has only accelerated recently because, for example, climate change mitigation and adaptation to climate change has become a hot topic during, I would say, past 5 years. If we go back 5 or more years in recent history, then we don't have so many targets or strategies within companies when it comes to climate, for example. But now all the largest companies, at least, they do have a climate strategy. Yeah. So that is how the world has changed for us. And in my eyes, it's only putting on more speed, the development.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is naturally that it's a change across the board. So it's the regulator coming in with continuously new regulation, stricter regulation. Yes. It's consumers, it's companies that are more and more looking into these topics, committing to these topics, and in the B2B sector, in the public sector, everywhere the demand is shifting. But also it's employees, I think, who are looking more and more to work for sustainable companies with a purpose in its setup, and investors. How do you see that development? What are the topics you're seeing as the important ones in that context?
Well, you actually mentioned the two most important stakeholders for us in that, and they are for us as a company, very important ones are the investors, of course, because we want to be an attractive object of investment. But the second thing, which has been quite challenging for construction industry, is being an attractive branch for employees. The young generation that now comes into working life, they are interested in what kind of contribution do we as a company have in sustainability. Are we aware of all the risks that our business has, and are we doing enough for the environment and for the climate? Biodiversity, for example, how do we contribute to that? They go into our website and they look at the content we have there, and then based on what they can read about us and see on social media, for example, they decide if they apply to the positions that we have open. And also the investors, well, of course the investors, they finance all the businesses that we want to operate, and therefore it is important that we attract investors. And now what we have seen during past 1 year has the EU taxonomy that entered into force is something that will impact quite a lot construction branch, because we are one of the big contributors in harmful impact that we have in environment and climate, and therefore we also need to work hard to reduce that. So taxonomy is very interesting, and it will impact us a lot through the investors that look at us as a company to invest in.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's the harm side, but one discussion we've been having more and more is the handprint side, because naturally you can also look at how much harm do you do, how can you mitigate that, but at the same time you can naturally also, with new production models, new ways of building, new infrastructure, basically create a handprint in that context. Specifically, if you think about public transport, enabling that and bringing more people towards public transport can create a good handprint in that regard. Now, since last year, you are a board member in the Green Building Council in Finland. And as an industry body, the Green Building Council has an important role in basically shaping the transition of the industry. How do you see the need to address the shift towards circularity as an individual company versus the action required on an industry level in that context?
Well, the reason why we have been active in Green Building Council Finland is that what we can do as a single company is only limited. We need to collaborate with other companies within the branch and in this industry to be able to make real impact. And that is why we are working hard to make companies within the branch to work together to increase circularity within this business.
How do you see? We've been working recently quite a bit in the building environment, and what you see is naturally there's a strong interdependence between different players. It's not that one company can just go ahead and do something. There's a lot of other companies that need to follow in lockstep, otherwise it doesn't work. How do you see the need to cooperate across, let's call it the value chain, basically the value system across all of these different companies, and how is that working today? Are all the different companies on the same level? Are they aware of what needs to be done, and is there an ability and a willingness to find joint solutions in an industry body like the Green Building Council, but also outside of that in your day-to-day work at NRC?
Well, really interesting question and a complex one to answer, but maybe just to begin with, well, all the companies, they are not on the same level because companies, they work within different parts of the supply chain, for example, and then the requirements are a bit different. And we, for example, as a company, our biggest customer is public customer, the FTIA in Finland, that uses public money, and they do have different kind of requirements for the suppliers than customers that use private money, and therefore we are looking at things a bit differently than some other companies, for example. But the supply chains, they are really complex, but we have started actually this discussion, for example, with our suppliers on the environmental part. Now we are requesting EPDs, the environmental product declarations from our suppliers, and what we have noticed is that our suppliers, they are very different when it comes to being able to deliver EPDs. Some companies know what an EPD is, but there are even some cases where, I have basically educated the supplier on what an EPD is and what does it contain. So it can be anything in between, from the totally aware suppliers into the suppliers that have just recently heard about EPD, for example, in this case. So we have a long way in the situation where we can say that our total supply chain is sustainable.
It's interesting what you're saying exactly about this split between companies that know very well, that are spearheading these topics, and the companies that are behind. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important for a company like NRC, but also other companies in the construction industry as well as in other industries, to basically take this responsibility, I guess, of really taking suppliers with you, of working basically along the value chain. And that's also something we started to do a circular business assessment together with WWF. And one of the areas we're looking at very strongly there is advocacy. So not only how much are you looking inside your company to be circular, to be sustainable, to do good things, but also what is the active role you're taking to change the industry, to change society, to drive systemic change, which I think will be a topic that will still keep us busy for some time, because it's such a fundamental change in the system that's not easy in that context.
I agree. Yeah.
Now, I mean, in the build and infrastructure space, we're talking about very long life cycles. So if you talk about a building, if you talk about infrastructure, you easily talk about 50 to 100 years. And if you look around the old cities of Europe, you're talking about even longer periods for a lot of the infrastructure. So in this context, decisions made today often take a long time to take effect because of these long life cycles. At the same time, decisions made in the past, 50, 100 years ago, basically influence our ability today to recycle, to refurbish, to reuse, to basically be circular, to be sustainable. How do you see the opportunities, but also the challenges in this context of having these really long life cycles in the things you're looking at?
Well, the challenges, they are related to the long life cycles, as you mentioned. For example, the railways that we construct and maintain. Well, the first railway in Finland was constructed 1860 from Helsinki to Hämeenlinna. So that's quite a while ago. The same railway still exists in the same place, but of course the materials that were used to construct the railway originally, they have been changed, I guess, many times. During this time. But how do we today know what kind of requirements will there be on the construction materials in 50 years or in 100 years? Nobody knows, because if we look 10 years back, we didn't even know back then that there will be so many requirements when it comes to sustainability, for example. Yes. The development is unpredictable. You don't exactly know what tomorrow will bring with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we briefly talked before we pressed record here, and we've been working with a construction company, and one thing they mentioned is that a lot of the construction material that was used 50 years ago in buildings that they're now receiving back for recycling, for reuse and refurbish, basically contain toxic materials. So they cannot even be recycled, even though they would love to do that, even though they're prepared to do that. But political or regulatory decisions 50 years ago prohibit us from doing the right things today. And I assume it's the same in the infrastructure industry.
Yes, of course it is the same. That's true. And we use these railway-specific materials, and they do circulate to some extent quite well in our branch. But there are also these old traditions and habits we work in accordance that once a part of infrastructure, for example, is maintained, the way of working is that we replace the old material with new virgin materials, and that kind of habits they are quite challenging to change, and it takes time.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, we know that the regulatory process today, and I think it's not much different from the past, takes time.
Yes,
we talked about the EU taxonomy and all of these things. It just takes time to get to a point where you set the standards, where you basically have the security in the operating environment that you can build on. Now, when we're talking about sustainability and circularity, there's very often a knowledge gap or a difference in perspective and expertise and motivation, depending on who you talk to in the organization. You very often have a sustainability team. They're naturally extremely knowledgeable and motivated. Then you have other departments who might know a little bit, and others that are blissfully unaware of the topic and are not even interested. So how do you approach sustainability at NRC Group, specifically when it comes to bringing on board the whole organization? So the people that are sitting in the executive board, in the management, the office workers, but also people that are really working hands-on at the construction sites or in the maintenance, to make sure they all understand, why are we doing that? Why should I be part of that? And why is that actually beneficial for me, for the company, and for the broader society? So are you taking actions there? How do you see that within the NRC Group?
Yeah, we certainly are taking actions. And that is a really tricky and challenging duty, to be honest, to make sure that everyone in the organization is talking about same thing when we talk about sustainability. And that is actually one thing that we started working with as I entered this role nearly 2 years ago. That we started training our people. We provided this small internal training, online training for all the employees throughout the organization. We wanted everyone to participate, to be able to create this language that we use internally when we talk about sustainability. And we have been able to attract nearly 90% of our organization to participate this training. So it's great. Now we have created the foundation for sustainability work. But then again, talking about setting targets, for example, well, you have to engage the whole organization into these targets. First, we talk with the board, for example, or the highest management in the company. I propose that I would see us as a company being wise to set targets like this, and then I propose them to the board or the executive management team, and they say that okay, go. Then it's time to execute. How do I make sure that everyone in our organization, from the headquarters office out to the project up northern Finland, understand the content of this target that we have set in the same way? It's a really interesting journey to work in sustainability and well, you have to visit people. That's one thing you have to do very often. Go out to the projects and meet the people and have the dialogue and interaction and make sure that everyone understands the message and the content in the right way. Well, of course, this has to be done in our case in 3 different countries.
Yes.
Imagine a company that's bigger than NRC Group operating in several countries. it's a demanding but really interesting work.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you're making an extremely good point when you talk about the common language, the common understanding, because I think specifically in the sustainability community, like the people that have been working with the topic for some time and are basically working with the topic, it's easy to assume that everyone understands it. It's easy. Yes. It's basically like, yes, sure, that's what it means. But at the end of the day, the topics, the concepts are quite complex and can be very abstract in that context. So it's really about being able to take these and contextualize them for people so that I really understand what does that specific aspect mean in the context of what you mentioned, the project up in northern Finland.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, me as head of sustainability in the company, I live in this sustainability bubble because 8 hours a day I spend with sustainability topics. Yes. So I kind of think that everyone else thinks sustainability as much as I do, even though I know that they don't have that possibility to do. There are other things to think about out in the projects, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I mean, specifically when we talk about circularity and sustainability, we very often assume that they're supporting each other automatically. So whenever I'm circular, I'm automatically sustainable. Whenever I'm sustainable, I'm automatically supporting circularity. That's not true. No. We're not living in an easy world where that would actually work. Very often, if you think about logistics and all of that, be it of recycling, be it of refurbishing, of whatever, you're actually creating a much higher CO2 footprint or energy consumption than you do in a linear model. So also these trade-offs, it's sometimes difficult even for us to understand those, let alone for a person who has, I don't know, 2%, 3% of their normal workday to look at these topics. So it's really important to take everyone with you. In that context.
Yeah, I agree.
And you've been recently launching a webpage, a blog.
We did, yes, just before Christmas.
So tell me a little bit about that. What's the plan there, and how are you planning to use that internally, but also then externally? Yes,
well, we launched this website called Sustainability Insight blog on nrcgroup.com website, and the purpose of that webpage is that we tell the story that we do internally in our company to the world outside us, and we are to this website we are bringing all the stories, of course, related to sustainability within NRC. That we want to tell outside the company. And why we do it? Well, we want to show the world around us that there is plenty of things happening within infrastructure. We are working hard on sustainability and circularity as well. We are actually today we are launching a new blog text on that website, so cool. It will be coming up soon. And bringing on different kind of content, not only blog texts, but video content and this podcast we will be launching as well. So different kind of content, something for everyone who is interested in sustainability, how we work on NRC Group, and we are thinking that we want to bring all the practical things that we do, because. The academic part is it's interesting to some people, but majority of people, they want to know, how do we do this in practice? How do we solve the questions or the issues that we have in practice in my everyday life? And that is what we are trying to provide answers to questions like that.
Great. I mean, I think it's important to bring out these examples. I yesterday had a discussion with someone from Lab University of Applied Sciences in Lappeenranta, and we discussed about the fact that it's so important, so critical to actually showcase what companies are doing, give very concrete examples so that others can basically see that it's not rocket science. It's something I can start small. I can start there. I can do these and these things. And it's through these examples that we will hopefully activate more and more organizations, more and more individuals in that context to take action towards that. And as you mentioned, I mean, the industry has varying levels of maturity. So if this can give other companies a guide on, okay, this is how NRC Group did it, so let's maybe test something similar, let's maybe experiment, or let's pick up the phone and call Jukka and basically discuss with him to see how we could cooperate. I think these are exactly the initiatives we need very strongly.
We are hoping to raise dialogue as well.
Yes. And I mean, related to that, I mean, recently the Circularity Gap Report 23 basically was released, and they sounded the alarm that over the past years, globally, circularity has shrunk to 7.2%. Just as a reminder, last year it was 8.6. So we're definitely going in the wrong direction here. So that's primarily, as the world is today, almost exclusively relying on virgin materials, and with that basically far surpassing the safe limits of the planet. So from your point of view, what can be the role of the construction and infrastructure industry, and what are the actions that need to be taken by the industry? I mean, we talked earlier about what the industry can do, but also what society, what the industry as a whole needs to do, and in order to turn this trend around and basically get closer to this target of being a circular world, being a sustainable world.
Yeah, that's a really concerning development between these 2 years, and not good at all. And of course, we need to make sure that we change this development and increase circularity really soon again, because the time to act is now, not in 5 years. What we can do as construction companies, well, we use everything that we do is based on use of materials. We put different kind of construction materials together and then sell that to our end customer or the customer that will start then using the what we have been constructing. So we are kind of responsible on what kind of materials we are using. But on the other hand, at the same time, we are depending on what the customer has ordered from us and what the designer has decided that will be used in the construction phase. So we need to be really active as a company to propose use of different kind of materials, to propose increased circularity, to propose solutions that are a bit different than we are used to working with in the past. So this is the way that we can increase circularity. So we do have quite a lot of responsibility in this, because if we are just passive and only do what we are required to do, then not so much development will happen. But we really have to be active in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an extremely important point. It's we have to stay active. We have to stay on the ball and not just say 8.6 to 7.2. So I guess it hasn't worked out. Let's move on to the next topic. This is a topic that will remain important. Climate change is there. We're seeing the impacts. We have to do things. So it's on all of us. And as you said, I think it's an important point. Also to everyone listening, I mean, we all basically make decisions on a day-by-day basis on these topics. Maybe not in the infrastructure space, but definitely when it comes to construction, when it comes to consumptions and all of this. So the coffee is empty, and it's time to wrap up this episode of the Circular Coffee Break. Thanks a lot, Jukka, for the great discussion.
Thank you.
Could have gone on for, I guess, another half hour with all of the topics. So
I agree.
Let's say maybe we'll do that again at some point in the future. If you have any comments, ideas, suggestions, please let us know by leaving a comment in the podcast app of your choice or sending us a note at info@taival.com. Also, please remember to subscribe to stay in the loop on all future episodes. The episodes will drop every 2 weeks, so keep an eye out. There's a long list of really interesting guests that we have lined up that I'm really thrilled to talk with in the upcoming episodes. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you here at the Circular Coffee Break.